All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to this fifth Saturday occurrence, our gathering on the cloud. We are absolutely delighted to have you all joining us today, whether you're with us with Facebook Live or whether you're here in the Zoom space with us. We have the first of several really special programs for 2022 that will be brought to you by our presenter today, Annette Franks, and I'm going to introduce her properly in a few moments, but we're just really excited to watch this year unfold. There's such a wealth of information, and so we're super excited. And today we're going to discuss radiant health and mindful living. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce our presenter today, Annette Franks. Annette is a certified corporate wellness coach, a holistic health advisor, motivational speaker, and she's also a licensed professional counselor. She has over 40 years of experience working with individuals and organizations, including some well-known Fortune 500 companies. She conducts empowerment seminars and does corporate training, professional development programs. And she has an extensive background in the fields of psychology. And Annette, you may have to correct me on this. Gestalt, yes. Psychotherapy practices, energy and functional medicine, of course, holistic healthcare modalities, medical Qigong and Tai Chi. And special focus with addiction and different things with substance abuse as well. So very well-rounded is her background. And she's also tied into the foundation as she is a Tai Chi Easy senior trainer as well. So a little cherry on top there. And as well as being a certified Qigong and Tai Chi teacher through Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, IIQTC. So we know her well, and she is a wonderful friend and champion of the Healer Within Foundation. And we're so grateful for that. And so I want to mention that I'll be sharing Annette's contact information, her website information with you, whether you are on Facebook or here in the Zoom space. That information will come to you via the chat, because we want you to be sure to tap into everything that she has. And one thing that she does that's really exciting is she leads retreats in Costa Rica and Punta Gorda, Florida. And there's some retreats that are coming up this summer. And so we want you to be sure and have that information and all of the other wonderful things that Annette offers on her website as well. So watch for those things in chat. So without further ado, I'll turn over to our program today, Radiant Health, Mindful Living, Annette Franks, and welcome, Annette. It's so great to see you, and we're just so happy that you're here.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to be with you today. This is World Tai Chi and Qigong Day, which people know all over the world. We are actually doing Tai Chi and Qigong practices. And it's really an amazing, amazing day for me to be able to present also on this day. So you should have handouts. And if you don't have them right now, don't worry about it. The handout is a package that you can take with you and look at to fine tune even more these principles for yourself, and it's free. For those of you who did not receive the package, as Christy said, if you're signed up on their email list, you will receive the package of handouts. And there's also a list of a lot of these resources for free on my website, AnnetteFranks.com, and you can download several things that really are all about proactive participation in our healthcare. And that's kind of my mission. It has been my mission for 40 years, is to really help us put our own healthcare back into our own hands so that we can live longer, healthier, upright, and mobile with our brains intact throughout our I always call our lives, you know, a third, and a third, our last third of our lives. And I'm in the last third of my life. I always say 1 through 30 and then 30 through 60, and I'm 60 to 90. And I hope to be doing all of these practices with my health and wellness well into my 90s, and with joy. And that's sort of what I want to talk about today, is how do we really sustain our life force energy long term? Right? How do we really get proactive? I jumped on board the mission of the Healer Within Foundation because they're doing the same thing. It is a nonprofit organization, and it's dedicated to bringing wellness into the world through mind-body practices. And 100% of the proceeds and the donations today, I want you to know, go back to funding the Healer Within Foundation and their vision, which is a world of self-healing, wellness, and vitality. And that's right along with my values and who I am and who I've been for decades in my own practices. So to frame today, I'm going to talk about a lot of principles of health and wellness. And then we're going to move out of our beta mode and our brain and intellect. And we're going to end the last segment of today with practices of Qigong and the vitality enhancement methods. All the practices I'm going to give you today are things that I learned in my training through the IIQTC and the work of Dr. Yanka in his book, The Healer Within, which is something I always recommend, both books by Dr. Roger Yanka. And they're available also. So we're all kind of working together to help the world be a better place and be proactive in our healthcare. So I'll start with this. It's a quote from Thomas Edison in 1903. This was written: "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but he will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." I'm going to read that again. It's in your packet when you get it. "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." Thomas Edison in 1903 wrote that. And that, to me, is what the Healer Foundation is all about. How do we really get interested in our own inner healing, self-care? And what I love about Qigong and Tai Chi practices is all the beautiful things they do that put us in our body, upright and mobile, keep our balance, boost our immune, and all of the wonderful things that the practices do for us when we do them on a daily basis. So my work in Radiant Health Mindful Living, for years, it's all about mind-body health practices. And the beauty of my work was not originally founded in science, because I've been doing this long before the research supported what I was doing. But the beauty of my work is now the research supports everything I've been teaching for decades, as well as what Dr. Yanka's been teaching for decades, and the promotion of the Healer Within Foundation, what it's all about. We're now moving in Western medicine more and more to what we call functional medicine. And what that means is when the functional medicine practitioners, instead of giving plethoras of prescriptions and quick fixes and Band-Aid solutions, what they're doing is they're moving into looking at lifestyle interventions. And the lifestyle in terms of prevention, and the 5 major principles of functional medicine are also the principles I've been teaching in Radiant Health Mindful Living. Functional medicine principles and looking at our holistic self-care is how our sleep practices and our relaxation practices, our exercise and our movement practices. And the thing I love about functional medicine, it's talking about not just exercise, but it's talking about the importance of the integrative mind-body practices, which are the Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, all of the things that move our large muscles over our midline and help balance the hemispheres of the brain. It's not all just about cardiovascular. So again, sleep and relaxation, exercise and integrative mind-body movements, nutrition and hydration, and the importance of healthy whole foods, staying away from processed and sugar foods, and looking at how not just avoiding stress, because stress is important, a part of motivating us in life and helping us change, and stress is a part of life, but how we recover from our stress, how we rest and renewal from stress, and our own resilience that we build in life. And then how we build our relationships and engaging in relationships that are interactively engaging in our life, not just relationships that we give, but really taking a look at who's in our life that get interested in us, in what's important to us, who call us, who want to know how the retreat went or want to know how the weekend went, and people who are really interested in who we are. And that ball flows both ways in our relationships, because that's when the dopamine is increased in our brain, when we have relationships that are interactive. So we're going to look at, in the course of just, less than 45 minutes, how these principles are for our life. And when you get the package, if you print it off and you look, and I have all kinds of exercises in them. As Christy said, I'm a Gestalt psychotherapist, and Gestalt is a German word for aha. I've designed my materials that are free on my website to not just read about wellness principles, but things on my website that, and in the package that you're going to get, that I created for the Healer Within Foundation, principles that help us go, oh, when we actually do these checklists of where we are in our own life with our own balance. And they're safe to look at because you're not sharing them with anybody. They're things that help you go introspective, principles of health and wellness, to look at where we are. Because a lot of people that come into my practice are like, I don't know where to start. And my thing with people is to literally tell them, to slow down and to look inward. And I give them tools that help them look inward on a deeper level so that they truly can be grounded in their own recovery and what it is they need to start with. So the principles in your package, all the things in your package are there to help you in a Gestalt way, the aha way, look. And the things we're going to talk about today, the handout on page 5 and 6 in your package, it's a 3-minute thing. You can do it on your own, but it really looks at holistically how you feed yourself intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, how we literally feed our soul in a way that is in life balance, so that we literally are proactive in our healthcare and sustain our peak performance. So let's fine tune a little bit. One of the things I like to say to people is, if someone put $86,000 into your checking account this morning, and it was yours to use freely, would you know how to spend it? Would you know how to spend it? Most people would figure it out. And if I said, what if someone for the next every day of your life put $86,000 in your checking account? Would you figure out how to spend it? Especially if one of the conditions was, at the end of the day, whatever you don't spend vanishes. Would you take the time to figure out how to spend that money? And most people would absolutely stop, pause, and figure out how to spend that money, especially if they know it's going to be gone. And that's the same thing I try to say to people. If we really want to be proactive in our health and wellness long term, we need to stop and pause and look at, how do we spend the 86,000 seconds that we are given every day that we're here on earth? 86,000 seconds. How are we spending them? My sadness in the age of technology is so many people, because they're being seduced by this little machine. They're going out somewhere other than where they are, living vicariously through other people's lives, and they're forgetting to really stop and pause and invest in themselves. While I love technology and my ability to present this presentation to all of you, and Christy's in a different state, and Kim's in a different state, and I'm in a different state, and most of you are in different states, we can all come together through technology. That is a gift and a blessing. But there's something happening with technology that is robbing us from ourselves and our own lives and our own pause time. So we're going to look at the principles of health and wellness. And one of the very first principles I want to invite you to look a little deeper is sleep. Do we protect our sleep? And that's a real important thing, because if we're not protecting our sleep and getting about 7 to 8 hours sleep a night, what happens is our energy is not as full or on or radiant as it could be. And a lot of people today, they get 5 and 6 hours sleep and they think that's enough. And it really truly isn't to sustain health and wellness and brain capacity over time. It is not enough time. They say that teenagers, we used to make fun of teenagers because, they sleep a lot. Teenagers are supposed to sleep 9 and 10 hours a day. That's when their brain and their body is really bursting. They're not lazy. It's part of the human condition. And through our rest of our life until senior citizens, we need 7 to 8 hours sleep for optimal performance over time. And it's the over time that I really want to stress. As we get older, it's kind of neat because I'm in that category. They say, 7 hours is okay. We don't need that 8 or 9 or 10. So we need a little bit less. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why, but they do say, through the beginning of our life, we sleep a lot, including infants. But what's happening to people's sleep cycles, and we know that over a third of the world has problems with sleep because of what's happening, and not only how we're living, but our food, is the invention of light. So what happens is when the sun sets in normal evolution of man, what increases in our brain is melatonin. And most people know that. But when you turn lights on in your house, your brain doesn't produce that much melatonin. And when you not only keep the lights on when you're doing screen time, it even dysregulates the brain even worse. So people who are on their phones, looking at little screens or computer screens or reading books that aren't paper. I always say one of the best delicious things you can do at night is read a paper book, not a screen book, because screens, we know the lights are disrupting our sleep patterns. So I like to say to people, stay off their screens, stay off the computers at least 2 hours before we go to bed. I'd like to see after dinner, people really being connected to themselves and each other in a way where they're not utilizing screen time at all. The world is a delicious place with many hobbies and many connections that, our families want with us. And I always like to say, really look at how much time we're on those things that not just take us away from ourselves, but take us away from our home and what's in front of us in our home. Because a lot of people are really somewhere other than where they are today. And that breaks my heart. There's an imbalance in technology. And the scary part, though, is it is really affecting our sleep patterns. The other thing I want to talk about is the way we relax. So you're listening to me right now in a beta. Your brain is in a beta mode. That's a good thing. That's how we learn. And it's a good thing. All right. But what you want, and why I love Tai Chi and Qigong practices, and what we're going to do with the second part of this session, is the brain. You want the brain to slow down to an alpha mode. The alpha mode is right before kind of the meditative mode, which is right before the sleep mode. We want to be able to train our brain so we can shut it off and drop back down. because in the alpha mode, which is what Qigong and Tai Chi practices do for us, in the alpha mode, it optimizes our immune system. That's when our immune system is more optimal, not when we're in a beta mode. The beauty of our body and mind-body connection is the body knows it's smarter than we are sometimes. And when people are starting to get sick, the body will say, if you're not smart enough to slow down, unplug from the world and go to bed, I'm going to get you so sick that you're going to end up in bed. And the good news is the body knows you need to shut the world off. That's how the body heals. So I've worked with people that say, I'm sleeping a lot. I'm like, that's beautiful. Your body's trying to re-regulate itself. Sometimes it's not a bad thing to sleep more than normal. It's your body saying, I need this. And so I'm all for sleep as a way of medicine. But the cool thing is, one of the things I want to really tell people is we have to learn. I wish we would learn how to really shift our brain from beta to alpha to theta, and then into deep sleep, into the deeper modes. And because what happens in the deep sleep modes, when the brain is in that deep unconscious mode, is when the brain, the lymphatic system in the brain, just like we have a lymphatic system with our lymph nodes, the lymphatic system is activated, and it literally sweeps up toxins in the brain. If we're not letting ourselves go into a deep sleep, or we're in agitated mode, or we're using pills, whether they're prescription or non-prescription, or substances or alcohol to clunk us out, we're not going into deep sleep. Deep sleep only occurs as we naturally slow down the world and allow our bodies to go in to that deep sleep. Now, in the deep sleep is the detoxification process. And a lot of people, when I give lectures, I'll say, how many have even heard of the lymphatic system? All of us have heard of the lymphatic system because we talk about that. That's almost 700 and some lymph nodes throughout the body that literally activate to release toxins. They're the first line of defense in grabbing chemicals, cancer cells and chemicals from our body and releasing them. But there's a lymphatic system that's in our brain that actually does the same thing. And so many people aren't going into the deep sleep naturally. And so what's happening is they're not cleaning out the brain. And while exercise and has increased over the years, and what's happening, why I really stress these brainwave states, and they're listed in your handouts, so you don't have to take notes, you can read them. But the reality is what's happened in America since the year 2000 is heart disease has decreased by about 14-15%. So we have decreased heart disease. So we're really doing better at these linear exercises and cardio exercises. And as Americans, we're on board with all these linear type of exercises that are literally increasing our cardiovascular system and helping decrease heart disease by, that's a chunk, 14-15%. But what we're seeing now since the year 2000 is very frightening when it comes to dementia and Alzheimer's. And by the way, I'm going to be teaching a whole 5th Saturday on the dementia and Alzheimer's in October, so stay tuned. But what's happening with the advent of Alzheimer's and dementia, since the year 2000, those things have increased over 85%. I'm going to say that again. We've decreased heart disease, so we're going to live longer, but we've increased exponentially dementia and Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's, by the way, is a form of dementia. We have exponentially increased it. And what that means is we're going to live longer, but we're not going to know who we are. So I always say to people, if you're not doing these practices, you better make sure you got a lot of money socked away, because memory care in the United States is very expensive. And a lot of people realize that. They say statistically, if most people plan to live to 85, I hope I'm on this planet 85, and I hope I'm upright and mobile, and I know who I am and who you are. But they say, if you look at 85-year-olds, if you take 3 people who are 85, statistically, what we're afraid is going to happen at the accelerated rate of the progression of these disorders is one of those people will have dementia and or Alzheimer's, a form of it. One of them will be exhausted because they will be taking care of the one who has dementia, because healthcare costs are horrific for memory care. So you've got one people not knowing who they are, the other person exhausted and no real time to really engage in life. So their quality of life will go much, much faster. And you've got the third person who will have their brain and maybe their body intact. But we've got 2/3 of the population right now on a trajectory that by the age of 85 will not be what we say, living vital health and vitality. So we have to look at not just cardio health, but holistic health. If we're planning on being here, vital, alive, alert, and into self-care for a long time. What's happening, if you look at research, and I've been following this stuff for a long time, and I really bless the opportunities to awaken in a Gestalt way. We've got to look at this, folks, because we used to live longer than, our children used to outlive us. But now this is the first time in human history that there is a significant increase in children because of lifestyles dying before their parents. And that's a frightening statistic. That shouldn't be happening, but we're seeing it more and more because of lifestyles that are happening. So again, we're looking at not just exercise, but the integrative movements that help balance the hemispheres of the brain. And that is just absolutely vital. And that's my sales pitch. It was over 20 years ago on the island of St. John, I went to study with John Kabat-Zinn and Candace Pert. And I just happened to go to the morning class, and Dr. Roger Yonka was teaching Qigong. And I fell in love with those classes of Qigong. And I was like, oh my word, these things are priceless as meditative movements that literally not only quell all kinds of anxiety and boost us from depression, but quiet the mind, drop the brain from beta to alpha, and put us in what I called back then the zone. I love these practices. And then I, of course, went on to be certified by Dr. Yonka and get the IIQTC official training. And now I'm trained as a senior trainer to help truly get people certified, because the mission of the Healer Within Foundation is to really teach thousands to empower millions in these practices. And certifications are a way that we can do this in nursing homes and assisted living care. We can do them in hospitals. We can do them in YMCAs. The certification process through the Healer Within Foundation is a way that we can not just do these practices for ourselves, but give them back to the world. And today, most facilities want people to be certified before they will hire you. And the Healer Within Foundation has phenomenal certification programs and trainings always throughout the year. So movement is important, but integrative movement is important. So the next piece that we really want to look at is nutrition and hydration. So I say, always drink lots of water. Water is the filtration center that flushes the toxins out of our body. And so after every class I teach in the integrative movements and that I teach, and today after the practices, make sure you drink clear water, because the movements are going to activate the lymphatic system, which is going to activate the release of the toxins. And so you really want to make sure that you always get enough clear water to flush the toxins out of the body. I always call water is the electricity that runs our energy. And food is important. I can't talk in depth about it because of time, but food is important. So I talked about the lymphatic system, and they call it the lymphatic system because of glia cells, and it's similar to the lymphatic system for the detoxification. But the brain is full of glia cells, and the only other place in the body, and the glia cells feed the brain and keep it alive and vital. The only other place in the body that we find glia cells is in the gut. And one of the things we didn't know for a very long time is how all that worked. We didn't even know when I started all this journey what the glia cells were found in the gut. But the glia cells in the gut talk to the glia cells in the brain. And so what's happened is, since the advent of genetically modified foods and glyphosate being sprayed on foods, and I could do an entire class on food and all of the horrors that we've allowed happen in our country, the chemicals in soda pop, the chemicals in our foods, all those things are going into the gut, and they're literally affecting the brain. And we're not talking about it as much as we need to be talking about it. It absolutely horrifies me what our country and our government has allowed to happen to the food industry and to the chemical processes in our foods, and that all of the genetic modification. Because if you really take some time and understand that, my guess is most people would be horrified also. So the key to really healthy, radiant health, mindful living for years is to eat whole live food, because it's those live foods in your apples and oranges and bananas and lettuces and lightly steamed vegetables. It's the live food. When it goes into the gut, those cells talk directly to your brain. And if they're full of sugar and chemicals and white flour and processed, that's dead food, folks. You might get a burst of energy because of sugar, or you might get some nutrition. I'm not sure I'd call it nutrition in processed food to keep your body from dying, because our bodies are pretty amazing. We can stay here for a long time and do a lot of crap to it. However, what it really needs, what the brain really needs, is those live cells. And I wrote all this out, broke it down for you in your handouts. It's also free materials on my website, because I really have been, just like the mission of the Healer Within Foundation, I am so into really having effect on the consciousness of our country, because what we think is okay is not okay. And we are seeing what's happening in the collapse of the healthcare system, in the collapse of, self-care, in the collapse of not being able to afford ourselves because of healthcare and because of all of the assisted living and memory care. We're just really doing a number on ourselves, and we don't have to. That's the key. We don't have to. But what's sad about happening is there's not enough organizations like the Healer Within Foundation and other organizations that are really trying to be proactive in helping wake up the world. And so that's why our whole series this year, all the rest of the 5th Saturdays through the Healer Within Foundation, they're little absolutely gold nuggets. If you like this, please join us in our mission to really wake up the consciousness of the world. Because we know that we can be more proactive, not just with Tai Chi and Qigong practices, but holistic. You know, I've been taking people to Costa Rica for a very long time. I've done over 20 retreats there and in different other retreat centers, but I really love Pura Vida Retreat and Spa. And they're an amazing facility. And I always say the food that they prepare for us, and they know I'm really conscious of food, is an 11 on a 10 scale, because I want people for 8 days to feel what healthy food is really like, because so many people think, oh, if you eat healthy, it doesn't really taste good. But the food there tastes phenomenal. And so much of it is fresh. They don't have genetically modified foods in Costa Rica. And so much of the foods are absolutely fresh picked that day. And you get to taste what real sun, you know, grown, good soil grown food tastes like. And it's even, I eat organic food in the United States. It even tastes better than our organic foods. It's just right from the sun and the soil. You know, where the soil is where we get our minerals, the sun is where we get our vitamins. And today in stores, you know, we're even organic food, it's coming from other countries. So it's plucked early and it kind of gets ripe in trucks or in transport. And what we really want is the freshest. You know, if you've got, you know, farmers markets around you or farmers around you, or you grow your own, you want stuff that stayed in the soil, because it's the soil and the roots of plants that pull the chromium and selenium and zinc from the earth. And genetically modified foods are soaked in glyphosate. They're not grown, they're grown what we like to say in dirt, not mineral rich soil. So if you really understand food, and I come from a farming background, most of us did, by the way, because we've only advanced in the last 100 years to some of this fast food stuff. But the reality is, you know, if you really understand why it's so important to eat live, organically fresh foods to help sustain us over time. And when we have a healthy mind and we have a healthy body, moving into the next piece of functional medicine and proactive participation in our healthcare, when you have a healthy mind and a healthy body, what happens is stress, when it hits us, we can handle it more. And we're more resilient because we have a healthier body to deal with it. My logo, which I put on the front of your packages, it's on the front of all your handouts, is this logo right here. And it's all the principles that we're talking about. The base of this logo is our self-care. And if I'm got half of it missing, I'm not going to flourish. And if you look at what this logo is on your pamphlets, on your handouts, you'll see this. I always say joy, vitality, radiance, you know, love for life, passion for life. It awakens when we're grounded in these self-care principles. And what happens is when we're grounded and our passion, our joy for life wakes up, we're going to sustain our healthcare over time, but we're also going to be, I have this little dot for our third eye. We're going to see clearly. How do we want to live our life? Who do we want to invite more of, do less of? We see clearly. We hear our own voice in our own life when we are able to pause in those pockets and we're listening to all the principles of our own holistic, radiant health, mindful living. So it's the same with, you know, if we're out of balance and it's like if I'm in a pyramid position and I'm not grounded and the stress hits me or the wind hits me, I'm going to fall over. But if I'm grounded in the Qigong stance, or I'm grounded in my self-care, I can handle more stress over time because I'm healthier. And what's happening is, you know, too many people are skipping on the sleep, using substances that aren't really letting them go into a deep sleep, not eating healthy, not connecting with people who feed their soul, not pausing enough in the self-care. And so what happens is they collapse faster. And we saw that with COVID. So many people were wiped out when COVID came through. And I believe for so many, it's the people who were, and we know this, but immune compromised, the people with pre-existing conditions. And if we look at a lot of that, what was that really about? What was that really about in terms of self-care? And so no matter what, whether it's another wave of COVID or some other kind of plague, the more we can really ground ourselves in these principles of self-care, radiant health, mindful living, and functional medicine principles, the more we're able to sustain. It isn't that we won't get sick, but that we will sustain our own longevity and be affected less because our immune system is optimized under these principles. One of the things I like to say, I always love to use this example because we're really pushing towards this, is if I hold my hand up like this, think to yourself, what's the first number that you think of? Okay. Most people, if they're honest, they're going to say 5. And what I like to invite people to think about from this point on is the number 9. Okay. In America, we are taught to look at what's physical, what we can see, the tangible, what we amass, the stuff of life. But what I really believe is vitally important in terms of sustaining our own longevity is these pockets of pause. And they're just as vital and as important as the other physical things of self-care. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I invite people in radiant health, mindful living principles to not just look at what we're doing, but also how we're being. What happens in the silence? What happens in the moments that we unplug from technology? What happens in those quiet moments? Can we feel our own joy, our own serenity? Can we feel connected to the earth, to life? Can we feel connected to our loved ones? It's like, what happens in those moments of pause for ourselves? And what I fear that's happening in more numbers than I want to happen in our culture is in America, we value this doing so much and accumulating so much that we're forgetting the value of pause and deeper sleep and quiet moments and the woods and listening to, in the Gestalt framework, all of our senses. Do we hear the birds? Do we feel the wind blowing? Do we taste the food, or we just woof it down? Are we savoring our contact functions, which is our sight and our hearing and our sense of touch and our sense of the inner feelings that we have? Can we hear our own voice? Some people, I'm a psychotherapist, so some people in my private practice, I will say, when you quiet your mind, what happens? Whose voice do you hear inside? And if we're not hearing the voice of spirit or our own deeper connection to ourselves, if we're listening and all of a sudden our mother's voice comes to surface, or our father's voice, or our boss's voice, we got some stuff we want to clean out. And because what you want to hear and feel and experience in those sounds of silence is a deep connection that roots us to the universe. One of the things I love about Tai Chi and Qigong Day, which is happening around the world, it's one world, one breath. We are all truly connected to each other. And when we drop down into that pause time and we savor it, we feel that oneness with the world, and that's ours. And some people that are not into the self-care, they're afraid to sit in silence because all this stuff burbles up. And I always say, just pause for a little bit and listen to what comes up, because whatever's coming up is what we need to release back to the universe. And when we do the vitality enhancement, I'm going to talk about some of those movements as we push away some of that yuck in our lives and breathe in some of that joy. One of the things I want to talk about with stress relief too, I don't want to forget to talk about deep belly breathing, the yoga breath or the Tai Chi and Qigong breath, deep breathing where we breathe deep into our center and into our gut. Deep breathing when our gut moves out and in is when we activate the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body that comes out from the base of our brain and comes down, and it hooks into all of these organs, our heart and our lungs and our digestive system. And when we deep breathe, the vagus nerve is activated, and it's one of those immune boosters that literally shifts us from the sympathetic dominant nervous system to the parasympathetic system. It shifts us into the relaxation response, or what we call the chi state of consciousness. So deep breathing is a mechanism that we can use for stress, for relaxation, for helping to build our own resilience. And as we do that, sometimes some of these voices that we need to release pop up. Don't be afraid to write them down, rip them up, and send them out, because we don't want to carry someone else's voice inside of us. We want to carry our own voice, our own glow, our own radiance. And the last thing before we do our practice that I want to talk about is relationships. So as we slow down and we really balance our own ground and energy, we want to look at part of that base is who's in our life, and do they feed our soul? So many people hang on to what I call toxic relationships that don't feed their soul, that are mean or hurtful, or they aren't into their own self-care. And because we're supposed to love them, you know, some people stay too close. And I'm like, you know what? We really want to look at who's in our inner circle, because I believe even if it's a family member, you know, I believe that we can love people at a distance, you know. And I love the martial arts because it teaches us to move towards or to move against, away from toxicity. And toxic people are drowning themselves. And, you know, if we invite them to read a book or to have a deep discussion and they're not willing to look at themselves, we need to look at that, because we are enabling. It's just like enabling someone who's drinking too much. We're enabling them to stay stuck in their sickness. And personally, at this last third of my life, I am absolutely not willing to let people who vomit on me or say meaningful things and hurtful comments. And if I've shared with them that that's mean or hurtful, I'm not willing to keep them in my life. It's absolutely, I step back. I love them at a distance, because they're responsible for their own self-care. And if for whatever reason they're not on board, I believe that our own wellness is about stepping back and not enabling. And, you know, that's part of what I teach in the world of addiction and in the world of psychotherapy. Not stop loving them, but how can we step back and love them from a distance? And who can we invite in that truly feeds our soul? The more we have people in our life that get interested in who we are, that care about who we are, that have the ability to listen to who they are, the more our soul is fed and the more we feed them. It increases the dopamine in their brain. As I'm looking at you on this screen and you're looking back at me, what happens in our own health and wellness is dopamine is increased. Not only do we put smiles on our faces, but the dopamine is increased in our brain. And that's the feel-good drug. What's happening with technology, the opposite of that, when people are texting and interacting and doing stuff on technology, It doesn't boost the dopamine. They're trying to get dopamine, but it doesn't boost dopamine. It boosts the cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And when the cortisol is boosted and the adrenaline is boosted, the adrenal and the pancreas have to work harder to then rebalance that. And we weren't born, we weren't genetically, we've not evolved to be blowing our adrenal pancreas out all day long on all that kind of what I call cortisol hits of energy. We're not made for that. And what's happening is people's adrenal and pancreas are starting to weaken more so than ever in human evolution. And if you understand what those endocrine system pieces do, is what happens is you get doctor, what happens is we start to increase the level of pre-diabetic, and diabetic rates are skyrocketing because our adrenal pancreas were that fight or flight response was for the saber-toothed tiger that might eat us for dinner. It's not for all this daily stress and high energy. And we're not aware of it. And people with anxiety, what's happening is they're searching for answers out there and they're not quieting their brain. And deep breathing is one of the most effective practices for quelling anxiety. So they keep in that spin until they're absolutely exhausted. And people who struggle with depression, sometimes they're looking at this technology hits to try to boost them out of depression because it does give them a fake boost. But what happens is there's a toxic after effect. When we go into meditative states through Qigong and Tai Chi practices, or meditative states through being in the present moment with our senses, are we where we are when we're there, just really deliciously savoring the present moment? When we do that, none of that has a toxic after effect. It's all part of keeping us healthy and alive longer. And that's what we're going after, is sustaining peak performance. And one of the reasons why I really wanted the opportunity to work with the Healer Within Foundation today was to give some of those holistic neuroscience, physiological practices that are literally proactive, just like Qigong and Tai Chi, that really help us when we understand more of how we as human beings operate, but giving us more proactive participation in our healthcare. I plan on being here a long time, and these are the principles that I love in my life. And most people who know me and are close to me and are around me, you know, I feel like I'm one of the happiest people on earth, and I feel blessed by that. Doesn't mean that things don't affect me. It doesn't mean that things don't happen around me, but I know through practicing these principles, I don't self-sabotage, and I really end up, it's like that electricity radiating out that life force energy that is contagious. And that's what I want for all of us, to be those beams of light where we radiate from the inside out, that chi energy to the world, so that we all sustain our own life force energy long term, right? So I'll close with this segment before we go into our movement practice with one of my favorite quotes by Father Joseph Martin, who was a leader in the field of addiction. He would always say to us, if you see someone without a smile on their face, please give them one of yours. Thank you. Again, I want to remind you that the Healer Within Foundation, if you sign up on their website, the Healer Within Foundation, they'll send you the website. We are not just growing as a fundraiser, but we also want a friend raiser. I love that word, friend raiser. We're trying to gather as many people as possible to share what we're giving back to the world. And if you want to donate, please do. Like I said earlier on, 100% of the proceeds for today and all the other Fifth Saturdays I'll be doing throughout the year go directly to the foundation to support its mission, bringing a world of self-healing, wellness, and vitality. And if you want more of my free materials, you actually don't need to sign up on my website. I'm not selling anything. Just go, you can explore in the comfort of your own homes, many things. And there's a whole list of things that I've created that helps people see themselves more fully in a safe way to be proactive in their own health and longevity. So with that, I think I'm going to close. I want everybody to get comfortable. If you need to take a water break, I'm going to drink a little bit of water. If you need to take a little bit of a break to go to the bathroom, why don't you go ahead and do that? I'm going to take my coat off and my necklace off, and I'm going to step back. And again, I'm going to teach the principles that are in, these are two wonderful books, The Healer Within by Dr. Roger Yanka and The Healing Promise of Qi. I'm going to be doing the vitality enhancement methods and also the 10 phases that we learned in our 3-year training. And they're also in the books by Dr. Roger Yanka. Okay, so take a couple of breaks. Let's get away from our mind. Let's get comfortable. Okay. Okay. And just so you know, we're not going to have a question answer at the end. One of the things I'm trying to teach you is how to take you from this beta brainwave down to an alpha state. So I'm going to hope that you're all in the comforts of your own home and you're not in a car. My hope is that you're grounded, and we're just going to quietly close with a quiet prayer practice at the end. And that will be the end of the practice. Christy will let that be for a while, and then she'll say goodbye. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now. Thank you for joining us. And I'm saying that again to the beta brains and the beta energy. So while we walk then ourselves down to an alpha state through the practices that are supported by the Healer Within Foundation and all of the work of Dr. Roger Yanka. Okay. All right. You guys ready to go? All right. Step back. I'm hoping that you can see me. All right. All right. So just start with just shaking out a little bit of energy, moving the body in a spontaneous way. If you were sitting, you probably might have some little ouchies or stiffness. So just kind of move your body in a little bit of way. All right. And then I'm going to start with the 3 intentful corrections. And my hope is that you can see my feet. I can see them on my screen. I'm hoping you can. You want to start with the 3 intentful corrections, which is put your feet a shoulder width apart. And you want to point your tailbone to the ground or slightly lift your abdomen, but point your tailbone to the ground. Okay, so you're changing your pelvic bowl so that it's not tilted forward, it's not tilted to back. It's like a beautiful bowl full of fruit, which is our organs. And so you want to point your tailbone slightly to the ground, relax your knees. Your feet, for most of us, should be straight on. For some women, if they've had several children, their feet might go tilt a little bit out, and that's a normal posture for you. But for most people, if you can make your feet straight on, so we do correct postural alignment, soften your knees, point your tailbone, lengthen your spine. Okay. Make sure that your neck is lengthened, which means it looks like your chin is straight or slightly down. We should not have our head up. Okay, that means we're not in correct alignment for the body energy to really flow through. So lengthen the back of your neck, soften your shoulders. Okay, and you can see my hands are just wiggling a little bit. just kind of, it's like I'm not holding any stiffness. And visualize a gold cord hanging you from the ceiling all the way down. So you're lengthening your spine. And in this position, now I want you to slightly, with the Tai Chi eyes, just slightly close your eyes. You can still see me, but squint them a little bit. And then I want you to take a deep breath into your abdomen. Just we'll take 3 slow, deep breaths. Trying to increase our awareness into the present moment. Clearing our mind of all the data that you heard, dropping us back down into our body, focusing on your breathing. And then slowly turn your palms up to the heavens, shoulder height, turn them down and release. Breathing deeply as you move your hands up, releasing your breath as you move your hands down. And just slowly focus. The next time you go up, I want you to lift your heels and then slowly release and go down. And again, up, release your heels and slowly go down. Now I want you to not release your heels, but I want you to do the flowing motion with your eyes closed 3 times. Feeling your body and allowing the brain to even build more pathways through your eyes closed. Noticing what you notice. And then I want you to do 3 with your eyes closed, lifting your heels. Breathing in as we go up, breathing out as we go down. And flowing motion is about balance. It's keeping our brain and neuroscience connected so that we don't lose our balance as we age. And for those of you who might have been a little wobbly when you went up on your heels, pay attention to that. This is something that we really want to keep doing more of until the body and the brain interface are stable. And that means our balance is good. Now we're going to look at the immune. So we're going to go all the way up to the sky and we're going to pump those lymph nodes. You're going to squeeze your hands. And this is about muscular contraction. Squeeze your hands, squeeze your hands, squeeze your hands all the way down. And then release. Squeeze your toes, your thighs, your buttocks. Go up 1 more. And then go all the way down again. And then back up. And 1 more time. What you're doing is just trying to activate your lymph nodes through muscular contraction. All the way down. And then release. And then slowly come up. And I'm going to have you do some more lymph activation through pumping your nose, especially right here. There's a major lymph node vessels in the right in the abdominal area. Okay, so you really want to give yourself pats all over, face, head, top of head, back of head, neck, just really any place you can think of. I like to say this is better than coffee, just really energizing. For men, I always like to emphasize especially the groin area, because that's the first line of defense. If there becomes some kind of thing going on in the prostate or cancer cells, you want these groin areas to activate, the lymph nodes to activate, to bust out and release that. And same with, women always say, when I was growing up, I thought lymph nodes were only here. That's not true. They're all over our body. And they are, like I said, the first thing that grabs those cancer cells to bust them and release them. And for men and for women, we really want to make sure that we're pumping our immune system all the way down, all over, front, back. Prostate cancer in men, we know that's the number one cancer in men, just like breast cancer is the number one cancer in women. Okay, back, good job. Okay, now what I want you to do is shake all that out. Let's go back to the Qigong posture. Many of you know it. For those you want to be reminded, feet shoulder width apart, tailbone pointing to the ground, knees slightly soft. Shoulders soft, lengthen the spine, and visualize the gold cord suspending you from the heavens. So your chin will be this way or slightly down, okay? And then just stay there for a moment. Now I want you to visualize 2 bags, 10-pound bags of sand in each hand, okay? So you're elongated, and we're gonna slowly, ever so slowly, we're gonna go to each side in the Tai Chi and Qigong stance, okay? And that helps move the fluid in the spine. It helps fluff up those discs and the fluid that holds the disc, and it keeps the fluidity of the spine going. And we don't do these kinds of stretching in normal life, but this is for good spinal care. Okay. And now what I want you to do is just take a bigger stance. And for those of you who know yoga, you know this. Just still, you're going to stretch even more. Slowly in each direction. Okay. Now you want to shake all that out. Just do a little spontaneous Qigong. I always like, because I'm a motivational speaker and a speaker and in the field of psychology, I always like to add the voice. So if you get in that stance, crouch down just a little bit, and you're just going to use your voice. Huh, 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 huh. Okay, shake that out. I think sometimes we're a little passive and we don't like to use our voices, but that helps open up the energy channels and also gives us permission to make noise. Sometimes it's important. So kind of keep moving around a little bit. All right. And something I always like to add is just a little bit of this. I love doing this with kids. So I want you to reach up, cross over your midlines. We talked about balancing both sides of the brain. I want you to take your large muscle, cross it over the midline, which helps the neuroscience in our brain and the brain balance interface. And I want you to grab some joy from the sun. And I want you to bring it into your heart. And then I want you to reach across to the other side, grab some joy, and bring it into your heart. Now I want you to grab some joy from Mother Earth and bring it into your heart. And take this arm and go down on the other side, grab some joy and bring it into your heart. and repeat. Okay. Now let's just shake all that out. Do a little bit of hand massage. Best, it's a practice. And in the hand massage, you know that, you know, our tip of our brain, there is a whole, the brain, the acupressure points in our hands and in our feet and in our ears are all correlate to our body organs. So when we massage our hands and our feet and our ears, we're also opening up the chi in other organs also. So this stuff is important to just really massage both the front and the back and the lagoon and each finger. Take a moment. Tips of the fingers, the sides of the fingers. Okay. And switch to the other hand if you haven't already. Okay, and so because we're coming to the end of our time, we're going to go into the 10 phases. I'll guide you verbally through the first one. We'll do everything 3 times. And so you can just follow along, but my goal here is to take us out of our brain and slow down the beta into the alpha in this meditative practice we're going to close with. And again, it's the 10 phases, and I will do each thing 3 times while we just kind of repeat, and then we'll close with the closing meditation, and we will see you hopefully at the next 5th gathering in the cloud practice through the foundation. Next month, it's going to be on addiction and understanding the brain disease of addiction. So I'm excited about that. All right, let's go back into our posture. Feet rooted on the earth. Feel your big toe, your little toe, the ball of your feet, the heel. Relax your knees, relax your shoulders, lengthen your spine. And then bring your hands up to discover the chi. Take 3 deep breaths, just feeling the energy of the chi between your hands. And then slowly gather from the earth, and then gather from the heavens. Now we're going to circulate. You're going to take your 1 foot perpendicular and push out. Come back. Push down. Bring your feet in alignment, and then slowly turn your other foot out, perpendicular, push out. Come back. Push down. Push out. And we're going to purify, bring your feet in parallel again, and you're going to push away, creating boundaries in your own energy space. And then you're going to breathe deeply as you bring in. Go up to the heavens. Bring back light. Push away from our heart, any hurts that no longer serve us. Bring back love. And give back to Mother Earth that which needs to be recycled, to no longer wish to carry. And again, creating our space of light. Now we're going to slowly direct the chi through our meridians, tracing our energy fields down the back of the legs, around the toes, up the inner thigh, and out, down, across. And again. And one more time. Back of the head, the shoulders, down the back. Now this time we're going to take our hand across our face as we look into our palm. Keep your one hand, let your other hand follow. You're going to keep your eyes straight forward. You're going to drop this hand. You're going to bring the other one up until it meets your eyes. And then you're going to go back in the other direction, watching clouds pass. And this time when you come to center, drop both your hands, and we're going to store the chi, scooping up from the universe and showering ourselves with the energy. And again, scooping up and showering, storing the chi deep within our being. One more time. We're going to form the ball of chi, noticing what you notice with the energy between your hands. Just feeling that, the pulsation, the electromagnetic field. And then slowly you're going to turn slightly to one side. And we're going to transform the chi in a Tai Chi way. Again, opening up your heart center. Bring your hands back, letting the chi dissolve between your hands, taking 3 deep breaths. And then slowly, this is my signature ending, bringing your hands to chi, to each other, to prayer form. Breathing in your light, breathing in your radiance, breathing in all that you are. Blessing this practice, blessing this time together, blessing this commitment to our own health and wellness and longevity. Taking a deep breath in, raising our hands to the heavens, making a beautiful heart, sending out love and light to the world, transmitting the chi that we've awakened within ourselves and giving it to others. Again. Radiating the love to the world and coming back home to ourselves. One last time. In closing, I want you to make a fist. And as we do, put one hand over the fist and give yourself a bow of gratitude for making this commitment. And then extend the bow of gratitude to the Healer Within Foundation for giving this gift to us. And pause for a minute, breathing in your light and your love, knowing that we are all one breath and one world. May you radiate your love within your being, within your home, within your community, and in the world. Thank you.